Welcome back to Santa's Little Stitches video series. Now that we've brought Santa to life, it's time to create his perfect partner, Mrs. Claus. She's warm, kind, and ready to help make Christmas magical. So let's jump right in. For this project, you will need a 32 needle and 22 needle circular knitting machine, a hot glue gun, a handheld steamer, this is optional but helpful, and lastly, your basic kit. The yarn that I'm using is Big Twist Cream, Deep Red, White, Black, and Caron Simply Soft Gold. The other supplies you need are fiberfill stuffing, hot glue, felt eyes, and a 24-inch template. Let's start with the body. We'll start off using the 32 needle machine and cast on with the cream yarn and knit 20 rows. When changing colors, tie the tails in a half a knot. We'll finish these knots in the next step. Change to red and knit 8 rows. Then change to black for 2 rows. Back to red for 8 rows. Change to cream for 6 rows. Change to black for 12 rows. Back to cream for 6 rows. Change to red for 18 rows. And lastly, knit 20 rows with cream. After knitting 20 rows, bind off. Once the tube is off the machine, give it a good stretch and turn it inside out to finish tying the knots. Once the knots are completed, you can trim the tails. So fold the tube in half, matching wrong sides. Cinch both ends closed and secure with a knot. Then turn the tube inside out. You should have the black stripe through the red section on the outside. Fill your tube with polyfill stuffing. Next, we'll close the open end. I am starting in the 6th stitch from the edge of the black. That is the halfway point of this black section. And I'm going to go around picking up one leg of every stitch. Continue to pick up one leg of every stitch going all the way around. Once that's completed, we can cinch these tails to close up that hole and secure with a knot. Now before we secure it, if you need to add any more polyfill, now is the time. Otherwise, we'll finish this knot and work on creating the separation for the legs. So before I do that, I will move some of these inside tails so that they don't show in the different sections. So using one of the tails and the tapestry needle, I'm going to find that seam of the color change, and I'm going to insert my needle right where the red meets the cream and go directly through to the opposite side. And I'm coming out right in that first row of the cream. Then I'm going to switch over to the other tail, and I'm going to go through in the opposite direction through that same hole. Now, when you pull on each tail, the legs will cinch up, creating that separation. Now we can just secure with a knot and bury the tails. Now let's add the drawstring for the head. I'm going to use the tails from when we cinched closed the tube. I'm going to use the longest tail, and I'm starting on the back side. And the back side is where our color jogs are. So insert your needle through both legs of the first stitch of red and pull that through. Then directly above, you'll have one cream colored leg, one red colored leg, and pull through. Into the next column, the first stitch of red, and then directly above, pick up the two legs of the cream. So as I pick up the two legs of cream, I'm also going into the next column of stitches and picking up the two legs of red. This just saves me a little bit of time not having to do these two stitches separately. So I'll just work my way around, going through the red and then going directly above into the cream and working every column of stitches all the way back to the beginning. Once you reach the beginning, we'll crisscross the tails and pull both tails to create that neckline. If you need to, you can adjust these stitches a little bit. And then once you're satisfied, go ahead and tie the ends into a knot to secure, and then you can bury the tails. So this portion of the body is complete. We'll just set this aside while we work on the collar. Using the 32 needle machine again, I'm going to cast on and knit 6 rows with white. Once the 6 rows are finished, bind off the machine. To attach the collar, stretch this out just a little bit and organize these tails so that they're not wrapped around the collar itself. And then we're going to slide it over the top of the head and place it around the neck. You might have to stretch it out just a little bit to get it to fit. Adjust the collar so that it's not twisted around the neck or the tails aren't wrapped around the collar. And I cinch down the tails just a little bit. And what I want to do is fold this collar in half so that the knit side of the fabric is on the outside and the purl side is on the inside. And I'll just work my way going all the way around. As you work your way around, if you need to cinch up the tails just a little bit, you can do that. That'll help keep the fold in place. Now that it is folded in half, I'm going to trim these tails just a little bit, and I'm going to end up moving one of the tails to the opposite side of the collar, just so that I have both tails on the same side of the collar. And I'm going to secure the tails with a knot. Then I'm going to move the collar around so that that knot is on the back side, kind of lined up with this color change seam. Then you can bury those tails. So let's move on to the arms. I'm going to use the 22 needle machine and I'm going to cast on with red yarn and knit for 10 rows. When changing color, you can tie the tails in a knot. This will be hidden later. I've done 2 rows of white and 3 rows of cream before binding off. And don't forget, we need to make 2 arms. To assemble the arms, we're going to cinch the cream end closed. This is the hand. Once it's cinched, we can go ahead and secure with a knot. Now we'll fold the arm in half, and I'm folding this so that the color change is on the inside of the fold so we don't see it. Next, you want to find a column of stitches that opens to the left on what I call the top side of this tube, right along here, and you'll find a column of stitches that opens to the left on the bottom side. These are the 2 columns that we're going to use to mattress stitch the side of the arms closed. To begin, pick up the first bar on the top, only 1 bar, and on the bottom we'll pick up 2 bars. Then back up to the top for 2 bars, down to the bottom for 2 bars, and just continue to pick up 2 bars on each side all the way to the end. By starting with 1 bar, it will align the stripes of the arm perfectly. Before cinching this seam closed, I'll add just a little bit of polyfill in the arm. After adding the polyfill, cinch the seam closed, stretch the seam, and cinch the open end closed. Secure the 2 tails together and then bury the creamed colored tail. And then do the exact same thing for the second arm. Now we're ready to sew the arms to the body. So I'll take 1 arm and just kind of gauge where I want to place the arm. And I place it on the side of the body in the middle, or you can place it just a little bit forward. That's up to you. I'm starting to seam about 2 rows down, and make sure you go underneath the collar. I'm just going to pick up 1 stitch on the body and then a stitch on the arm on the very top edge. When I sew the arms on, I always start at the top, and I start at the top edge. I go across the top, down the side, across the bottom, up the side, and finish off the top edge. So before turning to do another edge, I always cinch the working yarn so that it's nice and tight. And then I'll start the next edge. So here I'm just going through a column of stitches on the arm and a column of stitches on the body. I pull that tight before turning, and now I'm going into the arm almost halfway down. This is going to help keep the arm flat to the side of the body versus sticking straight out. I'll do a few stitches here, cinch it up before turning to do the side of the arm. I'm just going to check to see if I like the placement before I move on. and then I'll continue to seam. As you're seaming the arms on, I normally try to pick up 2 bars for each stitch. However, sometimes you only need to pick up 1 bar to keep things even. That is fine. Cinch that side closed, and now I'll finish off the top edge. For the last stitch along the top edge, I'll insert my needle into all of the stitches along that top edge. Now I'll leave this tail hanging until I finish the other side, just in case I need to make some adjustments. So I'll repeat the process for the other arm. I'll quickly go through adding the second arm, and then I will check to make sure that everything feels to be in alignment okay. And if it is, I'll go ahead and secure both of these tails. To do that, I take the working yarn and I will feed it through underneath the arm to the armpit area where I'll secure with the knots there. That way it's kind of hidden, and I'll do this on both sides and bury the tails. With the arms complete, we can move on to adding the hair. To cut the strands for hair, you want a template that's at least 24 inches in length. I'm using this cutting mat, which happens to be 18 inches in length. So this is actually more than I need, but I'd rather have the strands be too long than too short. So I'm just wrapping the yarn around the cutting mat a couple of times just to show you how I do this. And I'm only going to cut, because this is folded in half, I'm just going to cut one end to give me 2 strands. Obviously I need a lot more strands, which I'll do off camera, but that's just how I get the length that I need for the hair. I have several strands cut, and now we're ready to add it to the Mrs. Claus's head. And I'm just going to kind of frame around the front of the face and go around to the back side. Now I'll start by taking 2 strands, and I'm actually going to do this with her upside down. I think the finished side of the knot looks better this way. So take 2 strands, fold it in half, and then I'm starting 7 rows from the top of the head. I'm just going underneath a stitch. I'm trying to go through both layers of knitting. I'll grab the 2 strands of hair and then pull the tails through that loop and tighten it down just a little bit. Take the next 2 strands and do the same thing in the next column of stitches. So I'm going to keep doing this, going all the way around the head. I'm going to start in the very front and kind of frame her face in around the sides and then going around the back. So as I add the strands, I will kind of flip this around just so that I can see what this will look like from the correct view. And then I'll flip it around again and continue on adding the hair to create a hairline. As I'm adding these strands of hair, I'm trying to keep the face symmetrical. So once I have an even number around the top, I'll work side to side, making sure that I'm going at the same angle down both sides of the face. This next step is optional, but I wanted to show you how to steam iron the hair to get out the wrinkles. Now I've lost the footage, the original footage, so I made a sample dowel with some hair to show you how I straighten the hair. So I have a piece of blocking material behind my hair here so I don't damage my tabletop. And I'm just combing through the hair, trying to get as much of the hair as straight as possible. This is my handheld steam iron. It has some different settings and it's made by Conair, and I really like this one. So I've had it heated up for a while now, and now I'm just going to turn on the steam portion. And what I do is, um, as the steam's coming out, I'm just kind of brushing over the top of the yarn. I'm, I am touching the yarn, but I'm not leaving this hot steam set in one area because it will melt the yarn. So I'm going to just do one side of this so you can see the difference. And I'll flip it over and I'll do the back side as well, combing everything out. And I'll do that same side just to show you how fast and easy this steam iron works. So I've done this one half a couple of times and I'm hoping that you can see the difference here and how straight this yarn is now compared to what it was before. So what I'm going to do is finish up the other side and then we're ready to style the hair. Now that the hair has been steam ironed, we need to style this. So I'm just kind of combing through, trying to get all of the strands going in the same direction. And the first step is to just create a ponytail at the top of the head. So once I have everything straightened out, I'm just going to tie a strand of yarn around all of the hair towards the top end of the head. And I just want to check to make sure that it's kind of positioned where I want it and centered in the head. And then I can complete this knot and then I'll let that tail just become part of the hair. Then what I'll do is wrap that hair around my finger to create the bun, and then we'll tie that off. So I need both hands to do the tying, so I'm just wrapping the hair around this dowel that I have. It's about an inch in diameter, and then I'll just tie another knot here to hold that bun in place. Then I can remove that dowel and then I'll tie again on the back side of the bun using those same two tails. And then we can trim this to whatever length that you want. Now, when I made this sample dowel, I used the wrong size template, and so these strands that I'm using are much longer than what is needed. But it worked out in the end. I do have a little bit of scrap, but that's okay. I decided I wanted this to be a little bit shorter, so I just cut a little bit more off the ends, and the hair is now finished. So let's add the gold belt buckle. I'm starting on the back. I'm using a really long doubled up piece of gold yarn, and I'm just going to stitch on the belt buckle. And as I pull the yarn through, I just want to make sure that the strands are not twisted, and when it's finished I can just tie a knot and bury those tails. Next, we'll place the eyes on. These eyes are about 3/4 of an inch, not including the eyelashes. And so what I like to do is just place these on here where I think they might go, kind of fuss with them a little bit, make sure they're centered in the head and the right distance top to bottom. And then I will pin kind of uh, they're more like markers. I'm not actually pinning the eye to the face. I'm just putting some markers in so that I know after I take this eye off to put hot glue on, I know exactly where it needs to go. I remove the eye, put some hot glue on, and then place it exactly where it needs to go. I pull my pins and kind of push down on the eye just a little bit to make sure that it adheres properly, and then do the same for the other eye. The last thing I do is I will stitch on a mouth. I start from the side, go from corner of the eye to corner of the eye, and then in the center we'll just tack down the middle so that she has a smile. Once that's finished, you can secure with a knot and bury inside. I hope you enjoyed this Mrs. Claus's video. Stay tuned for more characters from the Santa's Little Stitches video series. A pattern will be available after the last video has posted. The pattern will include all the characters from Santa's Little Stitches video series. Thanks for watching.